Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And we got a special best of week on the Steve Jones Show here on WKOK. And Sean Carey, Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai, North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And our Monday edition of the Steve Jones Show brought to you by Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Whether you need homeowners insurance, business insurance, insurance for your car, your truck, your van, your SUV, or life insurance, they have the policy and the plan that'll fit your needs and your budget. And they work with the best brands, the most reputable brands, the ones you know and trust. And they will go to bat for you when life happens, the people you want in your corner. And they're with you all the way. Purdy Insurance, Market Street, Sunbury. Stop by, visit the Purdys today, or go online to purdyinsurance.com. All right, so we got some baseball talk coming up soon. We'll go back to June and have a chance to replay an interview that Steve did with Chuck Hixon from PhillyBaseballInsider.com. And then, right after LeBron James was announced that he'd be going to the Los Angeles Lakers, we spoke with Keith Smith from RealGM.com and also host of the Front Office Show podcast. So we'll have that replay with Keith Smith at 4:35. But we'll focus on baseball this half hour. And how about last night? A Cinderella ending in Wrigley Field. Our play-by-play call of the day.
2-2 on David Bodie, trying to come through. And the pitch on the way. Bodie drives one in the air. Deep center field. Back goes Taylor. It's got a chance. It's a grand slam. A grand slam for David Bodie. And the Cubs have won the ball game. Can you believe it? Wow.
Pat Hughes, Cubs radio last night. David Bowie, a 2-out, 2-strike grand slam. Bottom of the ninth. Bodie was pinch hitting with the bases loaded after the Cubs were stymied all night versus Max Scherzer. So it's as if Max's appearance on the mound didn't even exist last night. And then former Phillies closer Ryan Madson hit two batters, couldn't put Bodie away, attempting to get a low fastball by him after the Nationals had his number the day before. Bodie sent the ball into the center field, batting eye 442 feet from home plate according to StatCast. Bodie was an 18th round pick in 2012, but slow to make his way through Chicago's system until a swing change a couple of years ago clicked for him. He had a strong showing in spring training this year, and when Chris Bryant went down with a shoulder injury, it opened the door for Bodie, who hit the Cubs' second walk-off grand slam this season. The last time that happened was 1980. The ending overshadowed a great pitching duel between Scherzer and Cole Hamels. The former had never heard of Bodie before a July trade to the Cubs. Bodie's hitting .329 after his walk-off homer and sure to get more playing time down the stretch no matter when Bryant returns from injury. That's your play-by-play call of the day from last night. Phillies have the day off. They will be starting a 2-game series tomorrow at Citizens Bank Park, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, 7:05 against the Boston Red Sox. And once again, as like a couple of weeks ago, the Phillies are able to avoid Chris Sale and David Price in the pitching rotation. So we'll have the Phillies back on WKOK tomorrow night for On Deck at 6:30, first pitch at 7:05. And then Thursday we'll start a 5-game series with the New York Mets. Thursday will be a doubleheader, so we will not have a Steve Jones show for you on Thursday. It's going to be a single admission day-night doubleheader, and airtime Thursday will be 3:30. And as I mentioned, it's a 5-game series because that also includes the 2018 MLB Little League Classic from Bowman Field in Williamsport Sunday night at 7. And of course, that's all part of the 2018 Little League Baseball World Series. By the way, it was announced earlier today that the Beach Boys are going to be performing live Sunday afternoon from Little League. They're going to be up on the hill overlooking Lomity following the 2 p.m. game on ABC. So that'll be cool. Wonder if John Stamos, what if he's going to show up and play drums on Kokomo? That'd be cool. Let's watch out for that. So we'll go back to June, right around the first day of summer, when Steve had a chance to talk with PhillyBaseballInsiders.com's Chuck Hixon.
Chuck Hixon, PhillyBaseballInsider.com. Chuck, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Oh, good to be back with you guys again.
Okay, Chuck, just last night and what they were able to do. What does that do for a ball club when you do that?
Well, that's huge. They blew it last night. It looked like that was over. The bullpen came in. Nick Pivetta pitched a great game, and it looked like it was going to go down as a loss. And when St. Louis gets that run in the top of the 10th, then you figure it's definitely done. And Aaron Altair, of all guys, as Scott Fransky said, he's really been scuffling, and he was only in the lineup because Nick Williams got hurt. It was just improbable. And you pull one out like that, it can do a lot for a ball club, especially a young team that needs those wins like that.
All right, you talked about the bullpen. Look, there are a lot of bullpens that are really not great. St. Louis is a perfect example of that. They're really trying to find some combination right now. Where's the Phillies bullpen? Where do they settle right now in your mind?
Well, it was supposed to be a strength of the team because they went out, they got Tommy Hunter, they got Pat Neshek back during the off season. They had Hector Neris, who had 26 saves last year. It was supposed to be a pretty good part of this ball club. And then Hector Neris comes out. He's not what he was last year. Neshek still hasn't pitched. Tommy Hunter opened the year on the DL. Some young guys have had some good moments. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez is great. Adubray Ramos has pitched really well. But they've really fallen apart. And it's tough to have a bunch of young guys now that you're really leaning on in key spots. Dominguez was not available last night. He pitched in the 2 games previous, so he wasn't going to be pitching. And it's really a question mark now. They'd like to get Neshek back. He's started throwing again, but still hasn't started a rehab assignment. So it's going to be at least a couple more weeks till he's back. It's not good. It is something that they really need to find some answers for.
What were your thoughts and what are your thoughts on what you've seen of late of Nick Pivetta?
He is young yet, and he is still going through a phase where he's learning how to really win ball games. I mean, he looked great last night, career high 13 strikeouts, but he still has moments. In his 3 starts before that, he was just horrible. So it's up and down, and that's the key with this team, not just with Pivetta, but you've got so many young guys where consistency is going to be an issue, and when they struggle, they can struggle mightily, but at times they're going to look really good. And I think that if they're patient with them, they'll find that they have some good young players that are going to help them for a long time. Pivetta is one of them. It's just a matter of learning how to win, and sometimes you have to go out there when you don't have your best stuff and win. Now, last night he had everything working for him, but the trick is on those nights when you don't have all of those pitches going for you, how do you win on those nights? And make it through 6 innings or whatever you can give your club. And that's what some of these young guys are still trying to figure out.
It would not be a sure thing that it would happen. But if the Phillies were given a proposal that involved Manny Machado, how seriously should they consider it?
In my mind, only if they're given a window to negotiate with Machado and sign him long term, because they're not in a situation where renting a player for a few months is going to do them any good. The prospects that they would have to give up to get Machado, I think, would be prohibitive. And if you're not going to get him signed long term and know that he's going to stay in Philadelphia, which, of course, would probably push the price up a little bit even higher. But you can't give away prospects for any player right now and really feel like you're doing the right thing for just a couple of months, especially with the type of prospects that it would take to get Machado. I mean, they're going to start with Scott Kingery. They're going to probably want, maybe a Nick Pivetta in there. And you can't do that for renting a ball player for a couple of months.
For a couple months, yes, but if they sign him long term, absolutely. Because I'll be frank with you, Chuck. I mean, I've looked at the research over the years. I'm telling you right now, the veteran player prospects mean nothing. I mean, look at Hunter Pence. What did they give up for Hunter Pence? I mean, really. And then what did they acquire for Hunter Pence? That's 8 players. None of them are as good as Hunter Pence.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. If you can, get an assurance that you can sign Machado long term,
yes,
absolutely. It may be nicer if you could just get him through free agency. But you can give up prospects if you're going to sign him long term. He's a great ball player, and he would bring so much to this ball club. But you don't want to give up those key players if it's only going to be for a couple of months.
Now, that part I understand. I understand that part. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about some of the young players, though. Crawford, Kingery, in particular. Where are they right now?
They still need work. I was a little bit surprised that Kingery opened the year on the 25-man roster. I don't think it would have hurt him to be at AAA for at least a few more months. I thought the plan with him would be that they would send him to Lehigh Valley and work on trying to trade either Cesar Hernandez or Maikel Franco, and then bring him up. J.P. Crawford, I wasn't surprised that he started in Philly. But they both still need some work. I think they're going to be good ball players, especially Kingery. But they're very young and they need some more work, and they're learning on the job basically. So I think they're okay, but again, that consistency just isn't there.
See, it goes back to my point. I have no problem dealing prospects. I have none at all. I watched the Red Sox. Chris Sale had 3 more years to go in Chicago. They dealt 4 guys for him. Which one of the 4 is it? Chris Sale.
Oh, I'm right there with you. As long as it's not just for a couple of months,
right.
And Phillies are at
I get the rental part.
Stage. The Phillies are at that stage where they could make a move like that and get in, a quality player, and they have some good prospects that haven't even hit the majors yet, that they could certainly put together some impressive packages for, a Machado or anyone else that they would want to go after. But
it's got to be a long-term deal with the guy you acquire, and I completely agree with that. That's smart.
Yeah. It's got to be a guy that, either he already has a contract for the next couple of years, or you get that window to negotiate, and he says, I want to be in Philadelphia, and I'll sign long-term. Let's do this, and let's win.
How did you feel about the draft part of it? I mean, we know it's years away as to any of these guys getting there, like Mickey Moniak's still on high A, for goodness sakes. I mean, and there's a 250 hitter down there. I mean, that was years ago. Hazy's not a bad prospect. Now you got these guys. What was the general feeling about how they picked?
I think they did okay. They lost a couple of high draft picks from signing Arrieta and signing Santana. So with the picks that they had, I think that they did all right. Alec Boehm, I think, is going to be a quality player. A lot of the Phillies people think he can stick at third base. Some scouts believe he's going to wind up as a corner outfielder. But he definitely has some power. And I've talked to a couple of scouts from other ball clubs who have seen him play, and they mentioned Rhys Hoskins. They said that they see a lot of Hoskins in Alec Boehm. And if they wind up with a player like that, I think that they did well. The other guys are all going to be projects. After you get through the first few picks, you're just making a project, and you hope that it's the guy that can work out. Every now and then you get a guy in a lower round that turns out to be pretty good. But I think that they did okay, especially considering that they didn't have a lot of those top picks to go with.
Interesting, though, that Baum, if my understanding is right, Chuck, he took less than his slot, which then gave him more money to distribute, correct?
Yeah, they had a couple of high school kids that were probably going to head back and go to college. And the Phillies were able to say, well, you know what? We can up the offer. We can give you above slot money. And, of course, Major League Baseball has a plan in all of these rookie contracts where if you don't make it, your college is still paid for. So the Phillies were able to say, look, worst case scenario, you're just postponing your college, and we're going to give you more money up front. And they were able to sign a couple of guys. And Alec Boehm had no problem with that. So, I like that from a player that doesn't hold out. He didn't even hold out to get slot money. He was like, yeah, sure. I want to get out there and I want to start playing.
And I admire that. I mean, he's still getting. It's not. He did not take a vow of poverty, but I like what he did.
Yeah, exactly right. He's still going to be okay. He's not going to be picking his meals from the dollar menu. But he's out there playing. And one thing you cannot get back is time.
That's
and
right.
The experience that he's going to get from every game that he gets to play this season is going to make up for that money that he left on the table.
Chuck, we all know that the first week of the season was not exactly smooth sailing for Gabe Kapler. There's really been nothing about him since. Obviously, they've got a handle on some things. How has he grown into the job?
He's gotten much better. That first week really was a disaster. I mean, people in Philly were calling for his head after, half of that opening day game when he lifted Aaron Nola. He's gotten much better. I still think he relies a little too heavily on the analytics. I like a manager who will use those analytics, but also is going to say, you know what, my gut tells me I'm going to pinch hit here. Or my gut tells me, don't go with the numbers in this situation. If it's all just numbers, then put a computer in the dugout and let it spit out what you're going to do. And I think that he's starting to see that he's got to put some of his knowledge into it instead of just, the computer says do this in this situation.
I absolutely agree with that answer. One final note, and then I'll let you move on, Chuck. I ask you about Franco. Why is it in the last couple of years he, in a lot of ways, has stalled?
Boy, good question. When he was in the minors, Andres Blanco was a big influence on him. The Phillies purposely put their lockers side by side because Franco was able to learn a lot from Andres Blanco. And, they both told the story of in spring training, Franco showed up late one day for practice, and before the manager or anybody could get to him, Andres Blanco basically said, I got this. And he went over to Michael Franco and said, you do not show up late for practice. You do not disrespect your teammates like that. And, there was even some talk that one of the reasons Andres Blanco was on the Phillies was because he was so good with Franco. He's got all the talent in the world, and I wonder if maybe, he seemed like a much better player the last couple of games, offensively and defensively. And I wonder if maybe sitting him down for a few games and saying, you know what, we're playing Crawford at third, that he may be the kind of player that needs that type of message, which is unfortunate. I still think he can be a pretty good ball player, but it's just a head thing. And, there are some players that never get over that.
Yeah, Chuck, I hate when you have to shock a guy into being good.
Yeah, exactly. And there are players that are like that. I'll never forget with the Braves, Andrew Jones in center field, just really, lollygagged after a ball, and in the middle of the inning, Bobby Cox pulled him out of the game and said, "Sit down, you're not going to play like that." And it changed Andrew Jones' career. And some guys just need that wake-up call. It's a shame, like you said, especially these guys that have all this talent, and they can't run out a ground ball, they can't, dive for a ball. And it's like a lot of players will tell you, the one thing that you should never slump at is hustling. And it's true.
Right. It's interesting because I remember Bryant Johnson, who ended up being a great receiver here, ended up being a first-round pick by the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. He's drop. So Joe Paterno switched him over to corner. And the first day he was like, okay. The second day he was still there. He went, uh-oh. Third day he was still there. And he looked around and said, wait a minute, this is permanent. And suddenly he got back on offense. They shocked him into being a great wideout.
Some guys need that. And it's hard to explain why, but some guys need that. And Franco might be that type of player that needs that shock every now and then to say, wait a minute, I can lose my job.
Yeah. Absolute pleasure, Chuck. Thanks so much. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the information.
All right. You guys take care and have a great day.
You too. That is Chuck Hixon, PhillyBaseballInsider.com. Always does great work. We will come back with more in a moment, brought to you by Sunbury Motors, as we continue on News Radio 1070 WKOK. For nearly 100 years, Purdy Insurance has been your locally owned, family-operated source for insurance products. With a staff of over 20 and partnerships with some of the industry's most trusted companies, Purdy has the experience and resources to get the job done. Whether you need personal, home, and auto, or complex business insurance solutions, Purdy will help you navigate through the process. Call today at 570-286-5855. Or better yet, stop in their Sunbury office to see what Purdy Insurance can do for you. Sunbury Motors Kia is getting aggressive in August with 22 under 20 grand.
Wanna see ya in a Kia. Sunbury Motors Kia.
Sunbury Motors Kia is getting aggressive on prices with 22 brand new Kias priced under $20,000. Choose from 2018 Kia Fortes, Souls, Rios, Optimas, even some 2019 models. These models won't last long. Sunbury Motors Kia has 2018 Kia SUVs under 30 grand, plus 0% for up to 72 months available on many models. And get Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Have a trade? They're aggressive there too. Paying you top dollar for your trade. SMC is getting aggressive in August and purging their 2018 inventory now. Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf.
Tax and tags extra. 0% financing. All qualified customers through KMN. Restrictions apply. Warranty and limited powertrain warranty. For details, see retailer or go to kia.com.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And it is a best of week on the Steve Jones Show here at WKOK with Sean Carey. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai, North 4th Street, Auto Plaza, Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia on the Strip, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. And our Monday edition brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street, Sunbury. You want to make sure you're backed by the products that have a great reputation. And, of course, the Purdy family, great reputation of taking care of their customers for decades. The people you want in your corner when life happens. So stop by Purdy's office on Market Street in Sunbury or go to PurdyInsurance.com. Hey, subscribe to our Steve Jones Show podcast, available on iTunes, Apple Podcast app, Google Play. If you happen to listen to us on iTunes, don't hesitate to leave us a review. Thanks to those that have done so. Also, thanks to those that have liked us on Facebook. Our Facebook numbers have gone up over the last few weeks. We're on Facebook, and also follow us on Twitter at Steve Jones PSU. Of course, we're following the weather and the rain here in the central Susquehanna Valley. Just a little while ago, the National Weather Service has posted a flood warning until 7:30 tonight for southeastern portion of Northumberland County, so that includes the Coltmont and Mount Carmel area, Schuylkill County as well over to Ashland, so keep that in mind as water levels are starting to go down. That is the good news, but we still have some isolated pockets of showers and thunderstorms that are going to be around the area, and also into tomorrow, but hopefully some sunny breaks in there too. So we have a best of week of the Steve Jones Show on WKOK. Tomorrow we'll have a replay with former Penn State linebacker, now with the Oakland Raiders, Jason Kabinda, one of the legendary Penn State greats, played alongside Jack Ham. Steve Smear, we'll have a Steve Smear replay on Wednesday. And then Friday we'll have NFL insider from Sirius XM NFL Radio, Adam Kaplan, and national college football writer Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Some of the highlights of our best of week here with Steve on WKOK. Well, right after the big announcement came down with NBA free agency, LeBron James was going to be heading to the Los Angeles Lakers. We had a chance to speak with Keith Smith from RealGM.com and host of the Front Office Show podcast.
I mentioned earlier how baseball can't breathe in the cycle because the NBA dominates the cycle. I don't care whether it's the playoffs, the finals, the draft, or now free agency. And Keith Smith from RealGM.com joins us again. Keith, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with LeBron. I don't think anybody's surprised he ended up choosing the Lakers. In your opinion, what is the domino effect of the decision?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting, with LeBron. That was kind of rumored to be the top spot. That's the place that I had him pegged for quite some time now, and then it obviously came to fruition. I think that might have factored into Paul George's decision to re-up with Oklahoma City, because I never got the sense that he wanted to be in L.A. with LeBron and everything that comes with that, for whatever his reasons may have been on that situation for Paul George. And then after that meant Philadelphia didn't get him. Now Philly re-ups with J.J. Redick today on a contract, and then they're still going to have some space to do something else whenever they're ready to add another player or two, or see however they spin that forward. And then you've got the Cleveland Cavaliers now are probably headed for a full-scale rebuild sometime, if not this coming season, within the next year or so.
Yeah, Colin Sexton was a teammate of LeBron James for 3 days. All right. So let's get to the intriguing part. A year from now, Kawhi Leonard is a free agent if the contract sticks the way it is. So what are the options with Kawhi Leonard? And then give me the importance for San Antonio that they want to make sure that if they make a move, they get return.
Yeah, so where the Spurs are at right now is they continue to say they hope to be able to patch things up and make things right with Kawhi Leonard. Now, whether that happens or not, we'll see. It seems like that situation might be too broken for that to happen, and maybe the Spurs know that, but they're just kind of paying that lip service out there to everyone. Now, what they're going to do is they're not going to just let him walk. They will take whatever the best offer they can get is. But the most important thing to know is they're going to do what's best for the San Antonio Spurs. They're under no obligation to do something great for Kawhi Leonard or help him out, especially considering he doesn't want to be in San Antonio anymore. So they're going to do what they need to do, whether that's the Lakers or not. That remains to be seen, and we'll see where that goes. The Lakers, to their credit, what they're doing right now is they are only signing players to one-year deals beyond LeBron James, because what they're looking to do is retain as much flexibility as possible, whether that's to sign Kawhi Leonard outright as a free agent next summer if they don't trade for him this year, or if they do still trade for him, to then have flexibility to add pieces around him and LeBron James going forward.
Is the door open to Kawhi Leonard sitting out this season and then becoming a free agent?
No, because what would end up happening is if he sat out this entire season, unless it was one of these, I just don't feel healthy enough to play or that, but if he just openly sits out, what ends up happening is it then defaults back to the Spurs. Spurs would have to agree to have him become a free agent, or they could hold him to still honoring that year that he did not end up playing for them. So I don't think you'll see Kawhi Leonard sit out. What you could see is him go into training camp if he really wanted to, and then shut it down in training camp or fairly early in the season and say, I'm just not feeling right. I don't feel like I could play. But at that point, I think you'd start to see the league and others get involved and say, hey, let's get this done rather than let's be a black eye for everybody.
Would Ingram and Kuzma be two guys the Lakers would not be willing to part with?
I think more so on the Kuzma standpoint, just from a roster building. If you have Brandon Ingram, now Ingram is the better prospect than Kuzma, yes. But if you have Ingram, do you need Ingram, LeBron, Kawhi? They all play overlapping positions. That becomes a little bit of a mess fit-wise, where Kuzma can slide up and play the 4 much more often. So what I think you could see is potentially offer Ingram. There's a report out there today that they made a pretty big offer of Ingram, Kuzma, Josh Hart, and picks, and it didn't get anywhere yet. I would think if that offer is really on the table, that's something the Spurs need to think very seriously about.
All right, now the Philadelphia situation. You mentioned in a previous answer, Keith, about re-signing on a 1-year deal, J.J. Redick. How disappointed should Philly fans be that they really, in the end, weren't players for any of the big guys?
I think there's going to be some natural disappointment in there, because I think people looking off the season they're coming off of, the really great run at the end of the year to get all the way up into the 3 seed, and then the big, first round win, and then going up against Celtics in the second round. I think people were assuming, hey, Joel Embiid proved he could stay healthy. Ben Simmons is for real. We've got these other good young guys here like Dario Saric on the team, and we're really, something we're building here, and I think they thought they could come away with a LeBron James or a Paul George as a free agent, and it just didn't happen. I think for LeBron, this was much more of a decision of Los Angeles being where he and his family wanted to be, and then for Paul George, I think he looks at it as, I've already got the ready-made team that if everything breaks right and we stay healthy, can contend in Oklahoma City. We're in Philadelphia, there might be a little bit more work, and I don't know that he wanted to be part of shepherding along a young team to help him get there. So they missed out on those guys. Now they're still going to be involved on Kawhi if they want to be. They've still got the pieces that they can go and try to make a trade if they want to be there. But free agent-wise, yeah, they missed out. But J.J. Redick, great fallback plan, fit perfectly last year, and then they still got cap space to make another move or two to continue to bolster the roster.
Say nothing happens. Does this put more pressure on Markelle Fultz to produce and start to show the potential Philadelphia thought he has when they picked him number 1 overall?
Yeah, it definitely does, because right now, if you look at let's assume they're starting 5, it's all coming back, and assume it stays intact with Embiid, Sarge, Simmons, Covington, and Redick. That really leaves a pretty thin bench. They lost Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, have both left town. They were 2 key contributors. They were basically the entirety of the bench, along with T.J. McConnell for the vast majority of the playoffs. So now you've still got McConnell there, but he is what he is, which is a really good backup point guard or high-end player. So what they need Fultz to do is come in and be ready to score probably somewhere in the range of 10, 12 points per game for them to really get to where they want to be as a team this coming season.
We know the high-profile ones. Obviously, Chris Paul staying with Houston. You mentioned Paul George staying with Oklahoma City, and LeBron James moving from Cleveland to the Lakers. Has there been an under-the-radar signing or move that you sat back and said, you know what, that's savvy, they made a nice move there?
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit on the rosier side of things. In free agency, I can generally find the upside for everybody, but I really like what the Celtics did in retaining Aaron Baines. I think they know they're going to have to get through Philly and Toronto to get to where they want to be in the East, and Baines is their best guy to defend Jonas Valanciunas with the Raptors and obviously Joel Embiid with the 76ers. So for Baines to be back in the fold, and what he did was he took a little less money to give them the flexibility of retaining the entire mid-level exception, which really helps. I like that move quite a bit. And then just another one out there was the Utah Jazz retaining Derek Favors, that just happened today. Right. I really think that was a good move. The Jazz are not in a position to use cap space, so they structured a really smart deal with Favors, which is going to pay him a lot of money this year, but then it's a partial or non-guarantee for that second year, which protects them in case they want to head in a different direction. So I really think they did a good job as well.
When I asked the question, my gut thought you were going to say Baines. So I have to ask you about Denver. Denver made the move, and I agree with it as to what they did with Jokic, and then what they did in the draft. How much better is Denver? I'm not saying they're a title contender or anything like that, but what have they done with their stock? Because even they threw their name out there, they were rumored with LeBron.
Yeah, I think they wanted to get involved with LeBron. I don't know that was really ever going to happen, per se. I don't think that was a consideration from the LeBron side of things. But, as far as Denver, what I really like what they did was, they're going to retain Jokic. They retained Will Barton. How much better they are, we'll see. And I think a lot of that revolves around them getting and being healthy this coming season. That's going to be a big thing for them because their roster is not going to look that different. I like that they picked Michael Porter Jr. in the draft when he fell to them, but he's not going to give them very much this coming season, if anything at all. So I think it's kind of what you see is what you get, with maybe a couple more moves around the edges for the Nuggets.
Have the Celtics gone to Best Buy to get Robert Williams an alarm clock?
They need to if they haven't, or get them some kind of personal valet or an Alexa system that'll wake him up or whatever. It's just a really not a great story. You can tell from their comments coming out of the front office, Danny Ainge, as well as a couple other members of the coaching staff and front office team there in Boston, that they're not happy. They very much, we're going to deal with this internally, and they're not going to let it become a big thing. But they're making it known to Robert Williams that you're a professional now. Our expectation is you're at a bare minimum where you need to be when you need to be there.
Keith, when you look at the Summer League, what are you watching?
Yeah, the big thing for me is I like to watch the second and third year guys. So the guys who are, headed into their second year, headed into their third year, they're not borderline dominant or at least visibly better than everybody else. That should send up some question marks on a lot of these players if they just should be that much better for that. So those are the guys I tend to look at. I'm obviously excited to see the rookies for the first time, to see what they can do and bring to the league. And then there's always, by usually the second or third day of Summer League, there's somebody who's starting to stand out. It's generally one of these veteran guys, fourth, fifth-year pro, who looks like he's working his way back into the NBA and starts to draw some buzz. So those guys are interesting, but really focusing on those second and third-year players and just watching them to make sure that they're dominating Summer League as they should be going forward.
Keith, what did you think of Kevin Durant's contract from his point of view and from the Golden State point of view?
Yeah, and let's start with the Warriors first. I really like it because they save a little bit of money off the tax. He didn't take exactly as much money as he could have, and I think that helps the Warriors quite a bit. They're looking at a pretty hefty tax bill almost no matter what, so that helps there. From the Durant side, it made sense because now he can opt out again. With the Warriors, he can get that full max deal because they'll finally have his full bird rights, or he gives himself that protection. Let's say they win a third title, and he says, what more is there to do here? Maybe he does want to go somewhere else and challenge himself and do something bigger, and that's open to him now because he has that ability because of that contract that he signed with it, being able to be a free agent again in 2019.
Was there a point in going through all this and for years and years, did you ever envision the NBA would be at this point where it was dominating news cycles in the off season?
I did, but I love the NBA, so it's really hard for me. This is what I focus on. But this is amazing for the league as a whole. When you look at the fact that the salary cap continues to grow, that means revenues are strong. Teams are willing to spend money. Teams aren't doing a lot of these big luxury tax avoidance maneuvers, which says to me there's a confidence from the owners that they're going to make a lot of money. The NBA is arguably right now the second most popular league in the United States, behind the NFL
NFL. The NFL is king and probably will be for quite some time, but the NBA is perfectly content to kind of dominate their corner. One thing that they positioned, which is something David Stern started and wanted to do, is they want this to be a 12-month-a-year game where you're thinking about it, you're focused on it, and all of that. They're really close. If they get a couple more trades like Kyrie Irving's to drag out like last year, they're just about there.
One last comment, and then we'll move on, and that will be about the draft. The NBA, of course, has received some outside pressure about what to do with one and done, Keith. And that's outside pressure. You and I both know. Do they really want to hire more scouts? Do they want to scout the AAU? Do they want to scout high school basketball games? Of course not. How do you envision this eventually playing out with one and done being eliminated under the collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, I think initially what we're going to see is that it is just eliminated, that players can come back in. I think in the next round of the CBA, you might see some tweaks come where what the league does is they either set it up similarly to Major League Baseball, where it's if you go to school, you're at school for a year or two, and then you can come out after that, or they may set it up where there's something dumb where if you're drafted straight out of high school, maybe you have to spend a year or two in the NBA G League, which would cover them and protect these teams, because the teams, you mentioned it, they don't want to be in these high school gyms, but that seems now inevitable. They're going to have to do that. But then the other thing is they don't want one of these guys taking up one of their 15-man roster spots. This isn't, the NFL or Major League Baseball where you have a 53-man or a 40-man roster. There's only 15 spots, and they're all pretty precious. So what you want to be able to do is give the guys who have a chance to have an impact for you this year. You don't have room for these guys who are strictly a developmental prospect. So I think you're going to see some form of tweak where it's allowed, but it's allowed in a way where those guys are going to have to spend some time in the minors as they grow to a full 30-team minor league system, and that'll be something that I think the league's going to look to put in just to protect their teams.
The outstanding Keith Smith, RealGM.com. Keith, thanks for carving out some time for us today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Keith Smith, RealGM.com, on all the NBA movement, of which, as expected, there was a lot of it, starting with the big domino of LeBron James going to the L.A. Lakers.
Your station for news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.